Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very special edition of the neweveningisle.com conversation series podcast, unofficial, whatever. I have a very, very special guest with me today. We have the American guitarist, fingerstyle acoustic guitarist, Daniel Voth, and we are primarily here to talk about two albums that he released 10 years ago. So I'm considering this an unofficial 10-year celebration of these really, really introspective, very brilliant, very, to put it positively, guitar defying albums, such as Trancendance and Soundtrack of the Universe. And we're also going to be talking about how to implement guitar in space music, ambient music, because there's a lot of subtlety around that might be hard to understand on the surface. And we will also be talking about the future of guitar, which Daniel has really wonderful insights, and he's even working on really impressive pop projects in that regard. And so he is signed to CandyRat Records, where both of those albums are released under, which is a massive aggregate of impossibly talented, primarily acoustic guitar players, redefining the instrument constantly with percussive techniques, harmonics, um, uh, reversed arrangements. And so there's a few reasons I wanted to talk to you specifically. First of all, welcome to.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. When you reached out to me, obviously I was not expecting to see an email from you. And so, as compared to most emails I see in my inbox, like, okay, this one actually looks interesting. It's like a 1 out of 1,000. Click, right? I'm like, okay,
I
he wants to
appreciate.
do a podcast with me on the 10-year anniversary of Soundtrack the Universe.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I'm
time.
here, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, great idea. It's
yeah,
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, great. So there's a few reasons I think you're especially this you especially would make a very insightful podcast for a number of reasons, and I have them all listed. First off, given the I would say the academic nature of Soundtrack of the Universe, with especially your Carl Sagan spoken word excerpts that are throughout the album, especially in a zip. How do you say it? I'm so sorry. Zinth
That was in Nova, I
Nova.
believe. Yeah.
Nova. And the other reason is you also I consider you very multifaceted compared to a lot of the other Candy Rat artists. Not that they're not multifaceted, but you did tell me previously that you did a lot of the scoring and composing for vocals, for cello, and for the percussion instruments. So I'm wondering, I think we could actually get more out of the nature of the guitar on that. And the other reason I wanted to talk to you is because this might be a very hot take, but I feel like ambient music and space music has this fatal flaw where if it's overdone, and especially with over convenient tools like AI, it can come at the expense of technical ability. And I think Soundtrack of the Universe, part of the futility of Soundtrack of the Universe is it doesn't seem to have any sacrifice or compensation of those two, of having the ambient profundity of it and technical ability. So those are the main reasons I wanted to talk to you. So from my research so far, you studied classical guitar beginning at the age of 12, and throughout in between 12 and 17, you were listening to mainly Metallica and Iron Maiden. And then a pivotal point for you so far was a Dream Theater album, Images and Words. And that's what kickstarted and spearheaded your progressive rock chapter. And then you got into the Candy Rat circle by yourself, especially with Andy McKee and drifting. And then the most recent epiphany I could find was you attending the Canadian Guitar Festival in 2010. And that's what changed your approach from progressive rock to fingerstyle guitar. So, in regards to guitar and space music, in this early musical journey, what were some other epiphanies that you could use guitar to make music of a very cosmic nature? So what were your earliest motivations in combining those two?
I guess I'll get to that in a moment. Um, on top of what you said with my history with it, I would say the most pivotal thing in my life that made me a musician was having a piano in the house, right? A piano that was in tune. My grandfather on my mom's side was a professional pianist in Cleveland. So I grew up knowing that and really impressed with that, watching him play. So that was a major thing for me. And I was self-taught in the piano. I just loved sitting down there and just trying different combinations out. And on my own, I just found thirds, fifths, just basic music theory on my own. And so before I played the guitar, any iteration of the guitar was, and frankly still is, the piano is my native instrument. I think in terms usually in the piano layout. That's how I visualize it. Um, and then another thing on top of the metal for me, which I think ties in with the music, the acoustic stuff I'm doing, especially soundtrack, the universe, was new age music. In particular, I really fell in love with listening to David Arkenstone growing up. A lot of his albums were concept albums where they had a story that he had like a fold out book and it would tell this story. Some of them, he has like one that's like 3 or 4 albums long of just a story going on. And so each song is telling a chapter in it. So I love the concept and the long form way that he was doing it, and just beautiful instrumental music. The melody, everything was really just so the new age aspect on top of progressive rock metal pretty much formed the basis, I guess, of how my brain's kind of wired musically, I think, to this day. Um, so yeah, that's my background. Um,
David
so
Arkenstone?
David Arkenstone, yeah, he's still releasing albums. Gosh, that guy's releasing something like every other month.
Okay. I've actually, truthfully, I've never heard of him. In New Age, I mostly know the canonized people like Ian Hedges and William Ackerman a lot. Yeah, I've never
Yeah,
heard.
he's kind of with there with Ackerman. He's not so much a guitarist, but just a composer of cinematic music is how I would put it.
Mhm.
World music, new age. Um, yeah, some really good stuff. Some albums I like more than others, but that was definitely a big driver for me too. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So what was your question again? Exactly with the soundtrack, John?
With the soundtrack?
Yeah, with the
Oh,
soundtrack universe with
the question was like, um, the question was more about like space music. It was
yeah,
more like what were some of your earliest
yeah,
revelations that, like, assuming that you did have revelations, was like,
sure,
I can really
sure.
use the guitar and I can, what's the word? I can yield cosmic images, I can yield cosmic feelings out of this instrument. What were some of those? Was it a specific tuning? Was it a
Well,
specific?
gosh, man, I've always been fascinated with space, right? I mean, it's great to just be able to go outside and just stare at the night sky. Um, I try to make it a habit during the summer months here in Chicago to try to get out there, and when there's a meteor shower going to happen, I get out there to try to see it in the darkest spot I can find. Um, I used to be really good at finding the constellations. I grew up watching Star Trek: Next Generation. That's pretty much all I watched was that and Deep Space Nine. I didn't watch sitcoms growing up or any of that crap. I just watched Star Trek. That's it. No, I don't like the new show. Okay, but besides that, I love Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. So I think just the world view, the universe view, right? That they tried to emulate in there as for the future of mankind and how it could be, right? The new economy of money really not mattering and just Earth is united and everyone's out there traveling space. And there's a lot of science fact mixed with fiction in there, right? But it really inspired me, I guess, probably on the music front too. I mean, we are what we experience, right? And so from a TV standpoint, yeah, you got the metal, you got the new age, and as far as for a TV show, I was watching Star Trek.
Mhm.
So that's probably the major driver of the soundtrack of the universe is just that, and Carl Sagan and Cosmos, and gosh, I mean, I can't, probably 30 or 40 books throughout my years on space, right? Just trying to understand everything about it that we can possibly know. And it seems like every other month there's some other massive breakthrough happening.
Mhm.
Um, I guess the most important moment, frankly, obviously you don't know about this, but I didn't even have the title for it going into the mixing of this album. I had some of the names for the songs, but I didn't have the soundtrack of the universe picked out. And so while I was up in Montreal mixing it with Anton, is when LIGO broke the news that they had finally detected gravity waves from two black holes that were merging together. And they called it the soundtrack of the universe. And there was samples of it on the internet, which I then took the samples and I put them in the music. So that's that whoosh sound that you hear is the gravity waves that they detected at LIGO.
Mhm.
And then it was just like an epiphany. Oh, this album is called The Soundtrack of the Universe. And I was like, yeah, that's it, man. It was like it was just meant to be. It was perfect timing. It was awesome. It was I was in a hotel room watching it on TV or something, and I just like, damn, that's the album. That's what it's called. So that's pretty much the origins of that, John.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I like what the philosopher Daniel Dennett said, and it's basically it's my biggest takeaway from your insight so far, which is what you can imagine depends on what you already know. It's
For sure.
no matter how novel or creative it is, it's still by nature it has to be a product of what you've experienced and seen throughout your life. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's kind of funny. It feels funny asking this next question because now I have the insight that the piano you consider your core instrument still, even when which could be could be confusing to me and other I guess lay listeners because of CandyRat being unequivocally a guitar dominated label. So it feels funny asking this, but did you feel um, to conceptualize the role of the guitar in space music, was there is there any characteristics that you found the guitar to make it fitting or make it more unique in producing space music compared to more popular choices that people would do, such as synthesizers and electronic equipment?
Well, it's a good comparison because you can do so much with synths, man. Any sound you want, but it's too easy. So that's one thing that I wanted to do with the soundtrack universe was there's some melodies that are reappearing throughout the album, right? And it's pretty much a suite, right? Insofar as the introduction goes over the major themes, and then for the first actual song, Parallax, I'm playing those melodies in a certain manner on the guitar, where I'm doing standard finger style, a little bit of percussion stuff, and then you go into the second song, Redshift, and I'm doing more strumming stuff, and then Transcendance, I'm doing tapping. And if you listen to those three songs there, it's going over the same themes that you hear in the introduction. Yet with the guitar, I am playing these things in three completely different styles, which you can't do on the keyboard, right? And it's so fulfilling to play on the guitar. I view it playing the guitar as well. Anything you do is it's an exercise. In a way, it's like an individual sport. It's just so much fun, and it's so challenging to sit down, for me at least. If I don't play the guitar just about every day, I'm not going to be in top form. For some reason, I can play the piano like once every other week, and I don't lose my chops too much. But the guitar, it's so much more challenging, and it's all about the challenge sometimes. And watching a lot of these other CandyRat musicians and seeing all their different techniques, I thought, well, let's try to combine all of these things, and put them into each song, and build it up in a way where it's surrounded by this spacey type of ambience to it, which no one else had done. And that goes back to my new age roots, where I wanted it to have a much bigger feel than just being a solo fingerstyle album, because I've heard that. I wanted to hear something new. I
Yeah.
wanted to create something that no one has done before, and I wanted to hear something I haven't done before. And so that's when, well, okay, I gotta get this ambient percussion stuff in there that was done predominantly with me doing different hits on the guitar and adding massive reverb to it. Um, Writing the string quartets, uh, and trying just to really make it very epic and cinematic in style. Um, all came together one piece at a time, and it was, again, it's just like anything you're doing creative wise. It's the best for me. It's the best part of the whole experience of being a musician, is creating each song and
Yeah.
then finally hearing it when it's done. So
Yeah, it's a common pattern I see in a lot of world-class guitar players. A lot of them, several of them I've noticed come to the same conclusion that what makes the guitar particularly unique as an instrument, especially compared to the piano, is you can play the same notes even in the same octave, but if you play it on
yeah,
different strings, it's going to get a totally different effect, totally different genre, and that's why Andre Segovia says he recommends that nobody should compose music for the guitar except people that already know the guitar very intimately. Because and then of course a more extreme example of that would be Eric Johnston, which I remember him saying one time that when he does a solo, he always refuses to do like that big bend, the epiphanal note. He always refuses to do it on a G string because it's the most dry. It's a string with the least character, which
interesting.
yeah, it's that's just another addition that I've noticed in that pattern is a lot of the final conclusion of the best guitar players is that the guitar is unique because if you play the same notes, you know, even on the same not octave, if you play it on different strings, it's almost like a different genre. So that's
It can be. When you look at the piano, here's your notes from low to high. As you go down, the notes get down. It in that end of it, it's like a one dimension instrument, so it's easy to see the melodies for me on there. It's easy to know where things are. You're not like, heck, most songs that I do, I'm detuning my guitar to something totally different. There's not really anything I play in standard tuning, far from it. Um, so and that's done to get different voicings and to take stuff that I come up with on the piano and be able to play it cleanly on the guitar. You could say it's cheating. Okay, I guess it is, but it's what sounds best is what matters most. And it's not always an open tuning either, but again, just it's so much easier to visualize things on the piano to start than it is on a guitar with the six strings, and each one of them is going up. So I look at the guitar as being a two-dimensional instrument. So that gives you another layer, as to what you're talking about, with each string has a different tonality to it, and it can be completely different, color to what you're doing.
so
So it's so much more fun to play the guitar. Honestly, it is. It's, again, and so much more challenging. They both go hand in hand for me. Yeah.
yeah. I almost am starting to believe as I get older that I don't think anyone's really a natural born guitar player. I can because I've
Yeah.
heard people say that like you could sort of see that being the case on piano. You could sort of see that being the case, certainly being a composer, like hearing things differently. But with how much subtlety there is on the guitar, it almost I almost am starting to get convinced that I'm not sure anyone's a natural guitar player. So
there's also so much more expression you can have on a guitar,
Yeah.
right? From the note bends and all again all the different techniques that you can do with your playing, especially with this modern finger style stuff that everyone's doing.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's
So,
great.
so when composing soundtrack of the universe, and when composing these very cosmic compositions and songs, did you see that as a big undertaking? Having a rather primitive instrument, being acoustic, being not too mechanical, not too digitized. Did you see that as being a daunting challenge, compared to making something so easily with a synth, or did you always have, because with the new age influences, did you always have sort of confidence in the potential of that?
I had confidence in the potential. It before, I mean, pretty much I just visualized it in my head first. And that's the way it's been with most things that I write is I sort of kind of picture it in my head. And then it's what you think and just trying it out, see if it works. Okay, if I take the guitar to this tuning, and if I try playing this riff that I have on the piano, will it work? Oh, it does. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, what if I try playing it as a strum instead? Oh, that sounds great. That sounds huge, especially if you're taking that low E string. Like most of the songs in soundtrack, that low E is dropped all the way to a really low G. So you're really getting a lot more low end. So your whole width of sound is much wider on those songs because of the way I have the guitar tuned. And so the strumming sounds great on it. And then you add in, the different type of tapping techniques that I learned from watching a lot of the other CandyRat guitarists, uh, and trying to emulate that too. And then doing the percussive hits on it and turning the guitar into a drum kit and mixing those all together. You've got virtually limitless options for your enjoyment there. If you're just going to be doing something on the synth, again, as I think I said earlier, that's been done. I've heard that before. I haven't heard what I did with the soundtrack universe before, you know, and so that's why I created it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. If it's already been done, why try to do it again?
Why
It's like,
pursue
yeah,
what so
you're going to cover your own stuff. No, you're going to cover someone else's. I don't want to be in a cover band. I don't want to. I don't even want to like do what I've done before. Right? I want to keep on progressing and doing something that I haven't heard or done before. It's part of my core being of being an artist. That's one of the most important things to me. So
originality?
yeah, yeah, I got to impress myself.
Yeah. And so I think this is an interesting question um because it's a one of two conclusions, but there could be a third one that you see that I don't. So, from a philosophical standpoint, when I hear such a broad cosmic project like Transcendence or Soundtrack of the Universe, especially when that gets amplified by Carl Sagan speeches, the excerpts on that. To me, it's either that we can use the guitar as something that represents humanity, the human presence, being a human made instrument. Or I could also see it as using the guitar to dissolve that and turn it into something that's literally part of the cosmos and literally um, beyond human, like trying to like one with its cosmic message. I know I said that in a super nerdy way, but I was wondering if you've reached any of those on the guitar in particular.
Hey man, I got no problem with what you just said there. I don't think about it in terms of that, particularly when I'm composing or playing it. But I got no problem with that interpretation of it. What you're saying makes me think of well, heck, I have it here. It makes me think of my first album I did with the. If you look at the picture on here, right, it's actually a thesis statement on everything up to a point where I loved. I don't know if you know Ray Kurzweil, and he has his singularities here. Now it's that book was written a long time ago. I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, dealing with technology trends, and how everything, Moore's law, and everything's going up exponentially. And I'm like, maybe it's not exactly the right way of doing it. Maybe it's actually going up with the Fibonacci sequence. Okay. And so then I'm like, well, what follows the Fibonacci sequence? Well, so many things do. The shape of a galaxy resembles a Fibonacci sequence. Seashells, so many different things. Da Vinci's Portrait of a Man
Yes,
with his
even
layout of that. Our DNA strand does. And so with this, I put the guitar and music right in the middle of it, kind of tying it in with just string theory or whatever else, but just putting it right in the middle of the smallest things to the biggest things, all follow this pattern of the Fibonacci sequence, pretty much, which is what just happened, what happened plus what is happening equals what happens next, right? Mathematically, it's what 1 + 1 = 2, then 1 + 2 = 3, then 2 + 3 = 5, and upward and upward. So singularity, exponential. I'm like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's following the Fibonacci sequence. So I think crazy stuff too, man.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now it's funny you say because I do.
put it out
Yeah, because I do know Kurzweil, and it's funny you
there.
said
Yeah.
that he was following technology trends, and now he's kind of now. Last time I hear, he's following health trends. He's doing every age enhancing technology under the sun, but that's whatever. So,
It looks like you got a hair transplant too. But
yeah. So to talk exclusively about soundtrack of the universe. So I feel the best place to start would be to talk about the dominant tuning used in this, which I have it written out: G G D G B flat D. Now, another interesting nerdy kind of conclusion I came to that tuning is I've noticed throughout the album, and especially the suite, the more maximalistic it gets, the more instruments are in that album, it starts to sound closer and closer to G minor or B flat major, which they're the relative. And the more it gets down to just the guitar, like in Nova, it starts to get closer and closer to G major. So that's an interesting pattern I've noticed in soundtrack. So yeah, I'm down. Let's talk about, how you discover the tuning, what the tuning means to you, about the dominant tuning in soundtrack.
cool, man. I believe I first messed around with that tuning when I was up at the Canadian Guitar Festival years ago. I think you stated it was like 2010, 2012. And it was an awesome festival up there where it was in Kingston, Ontario. And you're just up there camping with a bunch of like-minded um, guitar players, fingerstyle guys, and there's a bunch of featured performers out there. And so I'm at my campsite, and close by there's this other site where this guy's playing a guitar, and I'm hearing what he's playing. I'm like, oh man, that sounds really kick-ass. Another band, I really love Tool, and what he was playing has really Tool-y vibe to it. And so I just walk over there, transfixed what I'm hearing, and sit down next to him and listen to him play. This man's name is Justin St. Pierre. I was just talking with him a couple days ago. He lives out in France now. He ended up winning the Canadian Guitar Festival competition a few years later. Magnificent guitar player, and again, a very unique artist. And I really dig his style. And so, yeah, he's the one to introduce me to uh, that particular, or a tuning quite similar to that. So I started experimenting with that tuning, and that's what ended up on the album. I think another thing with it was with my first album, and when you're playing live, one thing with this modern fingerstyle stuff is people are trying different tunings for all these songs, and so frankly, it's one of the hardest things, at least for me to do, is when you get done with a particular song and you have to retune your guitar and keep the audience engaged. So you got to tune, start telling a joke, or something to keep them interested. And you just, with my music too, it's like I'm trying to go for this trancy vibe, right? I'm
Yes.
trying to get locked in. That's part of, I guess, my music. It's, even though I love metal, my music, it just seems to have this meditative trance like quality to it. I don't know why, but that's what seems to come out. And so I just couldn't keep that vibe going, where I get done with a 3 to 4 minute long song. All right, I got to retune. All right, blah blah blah, and then a minute later I'm ready to go again. And by then you've got to start over again. You can't keep them in that trance. So I wrote the soundtrack universe where I could write an entire album with the same basically the same tuning throughout. And so when I play it live, I can play it live and not have to start telling jokes. I can just go on stage and not say a word and just go right through it and rip through all the songs and keep everyone, hopefully, if I play it well and they like it, transfixed to what I'm doing. So that was definitely that's the origins of the tuning, and that's why I stuck with it throughout.
Yeah, you could also do what um Kevin Shields from Loveless does, which is have 100 guitars and all of them be different tunings. I remember seeing his I remember
Sure.
seeing his tour gear, and he had he has long sheets of paper stapled to each of the guitars, and it says what tuning they're in. So it's so you don't lose track. I mean,
You got to do what you got to do. I
yeah.
mean, it's definitely an option to consider. Yeah. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
at least have two guitars, and you have to have a guitar tech with you that's retuning the other one you're not playing for the next song. That's an option too. Yeah.
Then start your side hustle as a stand-up comedian, I guess, while they're tuning.
Sure.
Yeah.
You gotta find your thing, man.
So so we've already touched pretty well by now, the musical side of the framework that guided your approach to composing soundtrack, and more importantly composing the idea of the album, which is having this immense and abstract universe of sound, in one suite or one album. So now that we've touched a pretty solid ground on the musical framework that guided you, what about conceptually? Any other abstract philosophical ideas that any stronger inner conviction that guided this approach?
I it's like when you're composing this, it's like, what song did I compose first? What song did I compose second? Is the way that I compose each song, the order that I compose each song, the order that they are in the album? No, no, no. It didn't work out that way. Um, so you're talking like 10 years ago, John. Only thing I can tell you for sure is that I couldn't be more happy with the way it turned out. Um, and it was a process. Make no mistake about it. I'm not sure how other fingerstyle or other musicians record their stuff. I've done other projects before this with a progressive metal band I was in, where I composed not just the guitar parts, but tons of keyboard parts, the bass lines, all the drum parts, and all the vocals. I did it all, and so I got a background with doing that stuff. So when it came to this, I wanted to first go into the studio and record all the guitar parts only. And I wanted to get a rough mix of just the guitar parts before I did anything else. Before I did any of the samples with the percussion, before any of the pedal steel, before any of the string quartets or any of the little synth sounds that might show up in there. That came after I had a decent mix of the guitar. And so then I could just really absorb myself into focusing on what's the cello going to do here? What's the viola doing here? How am I going to visualize this with the panning of everything? What is going on here? What's the concept? And just spending some long hours just visualizing this as to how you want it to be done. there's so much time that goes into doing a concept like this, and it's so rewarding to hear it when it's complete. So
Mhm.
that album really was just a labor of love, and from start to finish, and in different phases, from first composing it, recording the guitar, listening to the guitar tracks and getting a rough mix of that, writing everything else, going back in there and mixing all that with it, to the finished product that you hear.
So the conclusion I'm getting from this is it was almost like this wasn't really so much, an internal narrative, a preconceived album, and you went to the studio and fitted the music to it. It sounds to me like for you this album or this suite was much more of an external, process oriented work. Like I get like where I'm getting it from is a lot of world class filmmakers, Werner Herzog being one, um, Terrence Malick being one, where, talking about aversions to storyboards and stuff like that. Is that kind of how it went about? It was much more empirical rather than.
I don't. You're thinking about it really well, man. I love it. I love what you're saying. I think that the biggest problem I'm having is you're dealing with something 10 years ago, and I got done 2 years ago doing an album that was like soundtrack. It's not a concept, but the songs are like to the next level of intensity with the orchestrations I did. I just the main process with it was I loved the themes I had in the songs.
Mhm.
You hear them all in the intro, right? And it's pretty much done in the intro with the ebow and the string quartet coming in, and some of the percussive stuff that was sampled. And that goes through the themes. And I believe that was the last thing I wrote. I'm like, okay, this needs to have an introduction. I love the ebow. That has that really spacey vibe to it.
Yes,
Okay.
give an Ebo myself.
And I really love going on stage, and I'm a big fan of Michael Manring, right? And I love starting a show off with the ebow because next to nobody's ever heard it before. You start playing the ebow with this delay, a really thick reverb on it, and that starts the vibe out. And so, what better way to start the album out in that way as well, with an ebow based um, introduction to the themes of the soundtrack of the universe. So, um, conceptually, I was happy with the themes I had it, and the way that they were orchestrated out throughout the songs. And then some of the other songs like Nova, um, that one happened like once in a while, like a piece just pops out fast. That's slightly different than the themes in the first four songs, right? But and like you said earlier, it's got more of a major chord vibe to it, and I love the delay I have on there with the finger picking I have too. It's very open sounding, and in some of my prior progressive albums I did, I've always been a fan of samples, vocal samples, and so forth. Heck, I did one song back like in 2000 where I took like every major speech from World War II and stuck them in different panning sequences throughout the song. So you hear Adolf Hitler here, you hear Churchill here going on with the music all going on. It's all going together at one point. There's like 20 different samples of speeches going on. So, anyways,
Is this
Carl,
released?
what's that? Sorry.
Was the World War II, is that released to the public?
I think it's out in Spotify. Yeah, it's with this band called Melodrama. If you
Okay.
look up Shady Reality, it's called Thanatos.
And this was ages ago, right?
This is back like half my life ago, man. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
In the
I
previous.
mean, there's it's like what some of my friends call it busy rock. I whatever. There's a lot going on. If I could like re-record those things today, especially with Anton, who's just amazing. He's a wizard at mixing stuff. I love working with the guy. It would sound better, but it's got an awesome vibe to it, man. So I found Carl Sagan's speech. Yeah, I've known that speech for a long time, and what would you know? With Nova, it fits. right in there, like it was meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. And the other album you were mentioning.
Those moments like, oh, this is perfect. This is utterly perfect. So sometimes you get lucky like that.
Mhm.
You know, it's just such a poignant speech, man. You know?
That's really the miracle. That's one of the greatest blessings of
Yeah.
taking experimenting as an approach to making songs is you end up enjoying the process and almost to the point where you don't matter how the product will come out. That's to me one of the greatest gifts of experimental music. So
Yeah, you try things out, and you know what? A lot of times it doesn't work, but
yeah,
it does work. You now know it doesn't work. So that does, you try something else. You know, it leads to the next thing. It's part of the Fibonacci sequence up to a point. You know, what comes next?
yeah.
Keep on building on it.
And the other album you were talking about was that the one from Harmonic? Was that the
Harmonic Dreams.
Harmonic Dreams? Sorry. Yeah.
That one I released a couple years ago.
Mhm. And you consider, and from my conversations with you, especially prior to this, you consider that your magnum opus on guitar.
Ooh, no, well, I don't know if I consider that at all.
Okay.
Um, I probably consider, well, the soundtrack is, look, man, especially being a fan of Dream Theater, and I like long music sometimes, even though with the guitar, no offense to any other guitar players, acoustic guitar players out there, but I get sick and tired of hearing a song that in my mind should be 3 to 4 minutes long, but it ends up being 7 minutes. It better be real damn good to be that long. Um, so I really care about the songwriting, and I also like to change up the compositional way that I write stuff. I'm some songs work best if it's verse chorus, midsection, verse chorus. I'm not opposed to that, but more or less, I like to tell a story where I consider it to be, you know, non-linear up to a point. It's just, okay, here's this part. I'm going to play it out, and then it's going to go here. But that first thing I play, you're not going to hear that again in that piece of music. It's going to go on to the next melody, the next theme, and they all connect. Um, but by the time you get to the end of the song, it doesn't really resemble the beginning too much. It takes you on a journey.
Oh,
And that goes back to the David Arkenstone type of music, and progressive music, I guess, in general, where I just like the music to go somewhere and not repeat itself. And also, as a performing musician, it's so much fun to play a piece that you don't have to repeat the parts 3 times. You get sick of playing it, man. Right? I mean, I'm willing to bet a lot of musicians that have to play this stuff on stage over and over again for years and years and years. That's why they're doing drugs, because they get so tired of playing the same damn part over and over and over again. It's so much more fulfilling to just have a song that is always evolving and moving forward. You don't get tired of playing it. At least I don't.
yeah. That was especially insightful, because that's unfortunately, especially in dominated music, pop music, music they play in airports, blah blah. um, especially, yeah, I really loved your insight of the end of a song not resembling the beginning of a song.
Look,
But
look on the commercial end of it. I mean, it hooks you in. If you got
oh,
this great riff, you know they're gonna want you to play it. Okay, do that again, do that again, do that again. You know, it's pretty much hypnotizing the listener to get that simple melody down in their head and lock it in as soon as possible. Um, and it's also, I mean, for at least for me, oh man, that sounds great. But you know what? After I hear it 5 times, I'm sick of it. I got it. I got it. It's to me, it's just like I want to move on and hear something else. So, you know, I like writing stuff that doesn't repeat like that too much.
and
Yeah.
this I feel this question could be interesting because it could be um almost advisory to up and coming people that might want to play cosmic theme music, which I do sort of see growing in popularity pretty slowly, but it's I certainly see it growing. So what compositional dimensions of music, and I'm thinking the very fundamental stuff. I'm thinking harmony, pacing, melody, and rhythm. Which one do you find most essential to shaping a song or shaping music in general to put it in a cosmic direction? Because
Melody.
that's been pretty ambiguous. Um, pretty much pretty much it's always been ambiguous. Nobody's really had a definitive answer on that.
Melody to me is first and foremost. Or what's going on if you don't have melody, really? I mean, yeah, by far. Hmm.
It's the hardest one, though, to me at
It
least.
can be. Yeah.
It's
I
the
mean,
I mean Pat Metheny said it's the one dimension that you can't go to school for 4 years for. You know, you can go to school totally to study harmony and how it works. You can do that for rhythm, but you can't, and I think he's right, you can't really go to school to learn how to come up with a catchy melody
perhaps.
because it's
Yeah.
very multidimensional. It's a psychological thing too. It's a combination of rhythm and notes. It's not as unidimensional as harmony or rhythm. So
Yeah, it's language, man. It's the leading voice in what you're trying to say is the melody. If you don't have that, then I don't know what you got really. You don't really have, frankly, a song or anything that's really worth remembering. Where you just remember the drums, you know, you just remember the rhythm part without a melody. But I mean, it still can have a role, I guess, without melody if you're really looking to make it about the listener listening and just coming up with their own stuff. Heck, I hear it. I think most of my music has a lot of melody in it, but yet I still hear it from people that pretty much all I listen to is vocal music. Man, this would sound so much better with vocals in it. Okay, well maybe you're right. Maybe it would. What do you got? What do you got? It sounds great. I'm happy that this inspired you to think of this other melody that could be vocals for it. I'm happy that I'm stemming your I'm getting your creative juices to flow so you can hear something with it. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So I do believe instrumental music like this or space music leaves room for the listener to interpret it in their own way and come up with their own ideas on top of it. I think that's awesome. And I think I also enjoy kind of doing that. So it doesn't mean the melody needs to be in your face all the time, as it is with vocal music, where that's a done deal. But I think you can have melody in instrumental music without it being so much in your face, where it's just taken all interpretation for the listener out of the equation, where it just like this is what you got, and that's the end product. Um, I like being able to when I'm listening to music, I like to be able to think and not just have it shoved down my ears, I guess.
yeah,
Does that make sense? I'm not sure. I was kind of
yes, it
rambling,
does. Yeah,
but
it creates
okay.
the gift of ambient music is it creates a very organic, influential chain reaction. It can very easily inspire someone else, because it leaves a lot of room for them to hear something that maybe the artist even didn't hear that other people don't hear in the composition. So
But you know what? Again, what you said, all those elements are important. Um, but when it comes to space-based music, I, I'm not really like my album is called Soundtrack Universe, and and it has that theme to it. I wouldn't say I'm like the foremost knowledgeable person as to what's going on with that genre. Um, but it sure is interesting. And I sure like hearing creative different things like this. And I think you could try all these different combinations of whatever. But I'd still say at the end of the day, I'll just go back to what I originally said. Melody is where it begins and ends.
it's the language.
Period.
It's the language.
If it was a family feud, if it was a family feud question, I think that would win out, right?
Yeah.
So I'll do that.
Family feud. So and the last thing about soundtrack is I really wanted to ask this. personally, is you used Carl Sagan speech excerpts throughout this project, and then now thanks to our previous questions, that's been an ongoing pattern is using historical speech excerpts. But in terms of soundtrack in particular, um, did Carl Sagan or any of his ideas impact this project in any other subtle or unspoken way?
Probably did. It probably impacted, everything from watching Star Trek. Um, I yeah, just the whole philosophy of it. Um, you know, I was growing up. I was forced to go to church, Catholic church, and I'm not sure what happened to Danny, but at some point I just found it to be ridiculous. And um, I think just science and just realizing that there's so much we don't know, right? And I care about trying to figure things out. And Carl Sagan sure as hell was trying to figure things out. And he was also completely, open to being agnostic and not knowing so much stuff. And I think that everyone can have their unique beliefs, but for them to understand that a belief is an opinion, it's not a fact, it's not what you know, right? And that's the biggest differential to me is I don't care, like what religion you believe in, you know the same facts that I do, all right? Where we don't know what the hell's going on. So your belief is great. I just don't happen to have any beliefs in that regard. I just don't know.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of attributed to, Carl Sagan and other, like-minded people that think this way. It's not per se putting down religion as so much trying to make a common ground where we're actually all in the same boat here, people. You know, I don't take your beliefs so seriously. It's like people like to watch football on Sunday too. I want the Bears to win, come each Sunday, but I'm not gonna take it where I'm gonna start a war over it. Um, you know, and so parts of his, Carl Sagan speech where he just goes through what's happened throughout the history of our civilization. It's so traumatizing to just realize the idiocracy of what mankind has done to itself based upon different beliefs, even though we know the same facts. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's belief, opinion. Okay. And then it's knowing is facts. It's like, that's it. The only stuff that I believe is the stuff that I know. I try to think that way in all facets of life as much as I can.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. And
So I think that stems from, again, Carl Sagan and so forth. Just a basic way of trying to think of trying to be logical. And so, yeah, I what a great man, and what a excellent speech. And I think everyone should hear that speech if they haven't, and
especially
analyze its meaning to help bring us closer together as a species, to take the next level in our civilization. Let's go. Why
especially
not?
yeah, I think especially world leaders could listen to that. Maybe listen to it every year, once a year, every 6 months or something. Yeah.
Damn right.
It's really making me that's really making me think a lot about what the German philosopher Nietzsche said. There's two types of people in the world. There's those that believe and there's those that want to believe and there's those that want to know. So that's
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So
You're really well studied for a 23-year-old man. I'm impressed.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, So now we're moving on to Transcendence. So this is we already asked this question um in relation to soundtrack, but this might be this topic, this concept might be even more relevant with Transcendence. So when composing Transcendence, which if I could be wrong on this, uh, Soundtrack of the Universe is sort of a subgroup from Transcendence coming first, right?
Yep.
Okay. So on Transcendence, um, was there any other, maybe even some opposing artistic or philosophical ideas that motivated you composing that album, with Soundtrack being a almost a consequential album of it?
Sure, man. I mean, again, you're talking 10 years ago. Um, the soundtrack was its own entity. Um, and then the other four songs that are on, so we had that album released by itself as a soundtrack universe. And then Rob Poland from CandyRat wanted to take these other four songs that I had uh, recorded with Anton during that session. And I believe I wanted to initially have those four songs released as just a separate EP, right? Um, but he's like, oh, let's just put them all together, and like, okay, we'll do it like that. Yeah, so that I'm fine with that. It was fine. Um, and going back to what we said earlier, the thing that's different with those four songs is it does not tie in with the theme of the soundtrack universe suite at all. They're separate entities, but three out of those four songs are tied together. Okay, so it's a little trilogy that I don't think anyone's actually caught. Okay, so the first song, Delirium, is a standalone finger style song where I really wanted to take my current level of playing ability and test myself to the max to write, frankly, an engaging yet very challenging and technical fingerstyle song, utilizing all these different techniques together and just blow the top off, man. So that was Delirium. And then the other three, Absent and Brazil and Pie Circus, they all share a common melody in all three of them in different parts of each song. Besides that, they're three totally different songs, right? Where Absent is this beautiful ballad that I had my friend Joe Maxwell come in during the end of it to sing a really poignant lyrical line there, and he lost his older brother around that same time, so we dedicated that song to his brother Gene. Um, and then Brazil was written actually before any of this. That was the first thing written. And that introduced my new way of doing tapping on the guitar. Um, that you put the damper muter on the first fret, and then I'm just doing two-hand tapping throughout the entire piece with this ping pong delay on it. And so that was a lot of fun. That song, I still love that song very much. And my new album that I'm working on now is taking that type of tapping technique to a brand new level beyond that. So I really wanted to um, see what else I could do with the tapping stuff. I mean, there are a couple songs like that with the soundtrack, right? With Shooting at Stars and Transcendence, where it's doing the two-handed tapping. But what I'm currently doing is another level above that. We could leave that for another time or whatever. Um, and then the unsung hero on that album, in my opinion, is Pie Circus, which could be my favorite song I've written. I think it's killer. I think it's far out there. Um, and that one had the most fun in the studio, where I didn't want to have a string quartet or put different synth elements in there. I wanted to totally just play around with any potential guitar effect during the mixing process to create these different alien-like sounds that are coming in and out of each section of the song. So that's why it's called Pie Circus, quote unquote, alien dinner guests, because it has all these weird things going in there, including a Morse code message like halfway through. It's this song's a total trip. So that one was a hell of a lot of fun to mix. Yeah.
And just this side question: did transcendentalism, like the school of thought, Ralph Waldo Emerson, did that have any influence on that, or not at all? Not at all.
No, no, I think yeah, I took it as I've had some people say, "Oh, you spelled transcendence wrong."
It's a
Okay.
difficult
Yeah,
word.
but I didn't spell it wrong. I wanted it to be a combination of trance, end, and dance.
Oh,
Um, so that's kind of why I did it that way. Because again, like the song in the soundtrack, Transcendence, it's kind of like this trancey EDM vibe to it, right?
yes.
So I thought that was kind of cool just to combine it and respell the word in that manner.
Hmm.
Yeah, why the hell not?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not sure if this had any influence, but I really couldn't help but I found so much fitting overlap between the two. When I listened to Transcendence, uh, and I know you mentioned previously not being big into movies and TV shows. To me, I couldn't help but make a. It was super musically reminiscent of a Terrence Malick movie, like Tree of Life.
Fun.
Which,
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, man, sure. I haven't. I do watch a lot of movies. Is it? That's cool. I didn't know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm saying that because I have a follow-up question because anyone who's studied him lightly knows that one of his biggest themes is the dichotomy between nature and instinct, between logic and intuition. Um, what this is a I think a good question. When composing such sophisticated music where information and and facts, but also where intuition and artistic inspiration, where they can almost become they can almost become easily separated, to where when you make something like Soundtrack of the Universe, your priorities kind of have to change a bit. At least when I'm composing, how do I stay true to the facts, the science of this, but how do I maintain my own artistic identity in this? um I guess to word it the same way you did, if it had to be a Family Feud thing, I'm sure it's much deeper, more complicated than this. But at least when you're composing, what is the bigger of the two guiding factor in your approach? Is it more intuitive, or is it more let's stick to the facts here. Let's see what other composers have done that has worked. What's a bigger mover for you?
When I'm composing,
Yeah.
what hasn't been done? What haven't I done before? Is there a new chord progression? Is there a new melody that I have? Is there a new technique? What's the inspiration? It needs to be something that comes out. And um, I was listening to Stephen Bennett um, last year. He was playing a show out in Kansas, and he was taking questions, and somebody asked him uh, how he comes up with his ideas and all this and that. And he was mentioning, like, when he comes up with an idea, he doesn't record it, right? Because if he can't remember it the next day, then it wasn't worth remembering. Um, I sort of agree with that, even though I sometimes do record ideas when they come about. Um, you never know when it's going to happen. But I do agree, if it is such a good idea, then you shouldn't have to record it. You should remember it
Yeah.
and carry on with it.
Yeah. Stephen.
Um,
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, Stephen
Go
King.
ahead.
Stephen King said it even more comically. I remember at a conference somebody was asking him if he keeps a journal for all of his ideas, and he said journals are the best way to immortalize bad ideas.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You know, so you saw Stephen King. You went to one of his book signings or something.
No, no, this was a.
I'm a huge Stephen King.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Sorry, you caught up
yeah, no,
there.
so,
Yeah. I have every book. Yeah.
no, no. This was just a YouTube thing
You cut out.
when I was beginning to learn how to write. So yeah, but yeah, but he said the exact same thing, and that's
Awesome.
funny that you're a fan of his. If it's really a good idea, you shouldn't be able to have to write it down to remember it. So yeah, it's
Yeah, for sure.
a filtering
Yeah.
process. hmm So all right.
Yeah, and you take it from there. It all starts from, again, for me usually, John, it's a melody that I come up with. And that might not be the beginning of the song when the actual piece is done. It might be the end of the song. It might be the middle of it. I don't know. All I know is that it's a good enough melody to see if I can get something else connected to it. And if I can do that, frankly, it's when I got like maybe three different parts connected where it's reached that critical mass, that tipping point where it's gonna become something, right?
Yes.
And that's the hard part. I mean, there's so many different ways. You just, oh, I got this cool riff. Okay, and then what? What comes after that riff? They need to connect. You need to start taking it somewhere. Or that riff can continue to build up and build up and build up, and that's cool. And then you want to do it in a unique way where it's going somewhere else. Where for me as an artist, I don't want it to go the way I've done something before. I want to take it in a new direction. If it sounds too much like something else I've done, it's out. I it's just like that sounds too much like that. I've already been there. And that's one killer thing about the acoustic guitar with, like you said, with the tuning for the soundtrack and universe, with that low G, the G, all that, is when you take your guitar and you retune it to something brand new, you still have your music theory. You know what to do, you know how to play, but now you don't know what you're going to find on that guitar, right? So it opens up a whole new color to everything that you do. And it just makes it so much fun to explore. You never know what you're going to find. So,
Do you have a
yeah.
favorite tuning?
Favorite tuning?
Do you have a favorite tuning?
Ooh, probably this new tuning I came across by trying to take some of these piano ideas for my new album I'm working on that allows me to play the guitar like a piano with two hand tapping. So that's the low E is down to a B, and then the A is tuned to an F, and then the D is down to an A, the G is down to a D, the B is down to a G, and the higher E string is at a C. Yep.
BFAGC. Wrote it down.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not an open tuning, right? But when I'm doing tapping stuff and I'm trying to do these different arpeggios with my left hand and doing it with my right hand, how it combines, it's it's the cleanest way I can do it. Yeah, it's no experimental thing. Like, okay, has it been done before? Well, I haven't heard it. Have I done that before? No. Does it have some application? Hell yeah. So again, it's just like, dude, to be my age and do this much music and still discover new ways of playing a guitar, new tunings of playing. It's great, dude. I never would have expected it. So, thank you, acoustic guitar, and thanks to all the CandyRat artists that I've taken, the privilege of hearing throughout all these years and all this inspiration. It's been awesome. Yeah.
So you won't even so you won't even pass up so you won't even pass, composing a song if it even resembled too much something you've done in the past.
Not interested.
Mhm.
I'm saying that. I mean, I don't think so. Yeah, other people might say that sounds like something else I've done. I mean, my music doesn't sound bluesy, right? It doesn't. It all has a certain characteristic to it.
Mhm.
Um, I can't seem to escape that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have an idea of how to escape that, but um, yeah, that's probably for the project after the one I'm currently working on.
Okay.
So yeah, that one, I'll tell you what it is, just in concept. Why the hell not? It'd be fun. Is I was on the treadmill a few weeks ago, and I was listening to Star Talk, right? Neil
Yeah,
deGrasse Tyson and Chuck Nice. I love that show. Chuck Nice is hilarious. Anyways, I was they were talking about units of measurement and the metric system and yada yada yada. And one thing I've always kind of hated. I'd love to make a clock where I change the value of a second so that there's 100 seconds in a minute, and there's like 100 minutes in an hour, and there's like 10 hours in a day. So everything is just based on tens. You see where I'm going with this?
metric.
Okay. So I, I'm tempted to take, you can kind of see my electric guitar back there. Um, and I'm going to turn it, I'm going to take all the frets off of it, and I'm going to turn it into a 10 tone equal temperament guitar. So there'll be 10 notes in an octave that you can play. That's it. That's it. So it'll be a completely different frequency for every note, except for, well, A will be 440, A4, A5 will be 880, but then the intervals and the frequencies going up to there are going to be completely different. And when you do that, you still get something very similar to a perfect fifth. It's off. It's just a little bit sharp, but you can barely tell. So you still have those points, but you're throwing the rest of music theory out the window with there is no perfect fourth. There is no minor or major third. So you're talking about a brand new interval of this, and a brand new way of just looking at music and brand new sounds that our ears are not hearing. And I just want to base it off tens, man. I just want to hear what's going on with it with the notes being based off of 10 different pitches instead of in a regular scale there being 8, or in the chromatic scale there being 12. I want to do it metric 10. So
So
that
you're
that's
so
that's
you're
the next one.
you're trying to create your own temperament, basically. Yeah. How about I think both temperament doesn't sound bad. If you
Ah,
if you need a name for it, yeah, most because throughout history, most people that have invented temperaments, they just add their last name to it. So, you
well,
know,
I'm sure people have done a 10, it'll be called like a 10 tet, right? 10 tone equal temperament. But I honestly want to go back to like doing like a rock album with it, where I'll do it with electric guitar, I'll do it with the bass as well, and then vocal patterns. I'd love to hear it in that temperament as well too. Um, Crazy, right?
yeah,
It might be a total failure, or it might be something like, it might be kind of like yeah, or it might be kick ass. Only way you get it out is to try it.
yeah.
So
I like I like
we'll
I
see.
like I like how it's almost going in the opposite direction of, now I'm sure you know this, microtonal guitar is taking off a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thanks to up and coming artists now using microtonal, and I love that you're kind of taking, how can we, it's like fuck that. How can we how can we make less notes in an octave? Yeah,
Yeah,
let's turn it into a 30-60 note octave. So, mhm. And
yeah, yeah. I don't know.
yes. So, and the last question I have about Transcendence was very simple. Is we've talked a lot about turning points in your career, or more like specifically turning points in your taste? Did you feel overall, especially now that with it's gone in this very, I'm seeing it as an increasingly intellectual sequence. You know, we're going now from Transcendence and now Soundtrack of the Universe into something very thematic, and now we're going to Harmonic Dreams, you know, even more technique oriented playing. And now we're um talking about novel temperaments. So did to you at least did Transcendence represent some big did that represent any big returning point for you?
Yeah, it definitely did. It was, just I was so happy with it just being done as good as it was, and just being able to create a soundtrack in this manner, with the fingerstyle guitar in all its modern day glory, with all the different techniques, surrounded by all that spacey type of vibes that I threw in there. Um, to me, it was just a crazy awesome experience. And again, working with Anton DeFore, who I consider to be the best modern day fingerstyle guitarist out there. Uh, but frankly, he's even a better engineer and such a humble person to work with, to put up with all my shit, um, putting him through the ringer with every idea that I had. Especially with most of these other guys, they're just doing it with the guitar, which is great for a lot of them, but it wasn't enough for me, where I wanted to surround the guitar with all these different space-like elements and so forth, to really bring it sonically to life. Um, Took it to the next level, and it couldn't have worked out better. So it's great to reminisce about it. It's great to still put it on. I think the album's aged great. I love it, man. I couldn't be happier with it. So, and it's really awesome to do this with you, uh, to celebrate it being out there for 10 years, and to know that you likewise find it to be pretty kick ass. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And that was completely accidental, by the way. I didn't know till after I wrote to you that it was 10 years ago in
I
2016.
didn't know it was either. I had no clue. Yeah,
None of us
sure.
did. Yeah, it's
Sounds about right though. Yeah.
just cosmic timing. I love your attitude. So now we're just gonna have a few questions about composing. So I really do love your approach to it because I largely follow the same thing, and I'll tell you why, because hopefully it'll because I mean I'm not a therapist at all, but hopefully I can give you like the reassurance that I really truly believe your approach is correct into asking yourself, you know, what is something that nobody has done before? What's something I've never done before? What's what's a chord progression that's never been done? You know, now you're going beyond what I would have normally gone. What's a temperament that nobody's done? Because even I even find temperaments very intimidating because they're so mathematical. And I do find that absolutely the right approach to go to in composing songs because when you do something original and novel, even if it doesn't have any more or less subjective success, like, you know, it doesn't commercially take off, it doesn't become this big brand, it doesn't gain a large following instantly, which Nikola Tesla, of all people, was very warned inventors a lot about that, of not judging even your own product by its immediate success. But that's what's great about original work, is focusing on originality, is even in the long run, even long after you have to worry about it uh being monetizable, even maybe long after you're dead, is you still will always have the credit for the rest of humanity, for the rest of eternity, of being the first person that has done this. So that's
Absolutely. That's a fact, man. Right.
so
I,
you're
I don't know if it's like
artistically
it's not the primary driver. It's just what I like to do with my time while I'm alive on this planet. Right. It's an outlet for me. Um, and I think I said it earlier. It's it's not a competitive sport. I don't like viewing music as a competitive sport, but it's individual sport, with it's the fingers trying to get these things down. It's great for your brain from an artistic standpoint. It's a combination of a lot of different elements of what it means to be a human being that you're focusing on and harnessing and trying to get some output on. It's being creative, and I don't want to stop doing it, man. I just what's the next idea? What's the next idea? It doesn't seem to stop. I guess sometimes you don't have it. Yeah, it's like with the 10 tone thing. It's like up to a point, John. I'm like at the end of my rope with chord progressions that I can come up with that I've done. It's like I don't know what else to do, or it's going to start sounding like other songs that I've already done. So I don't want that. So I'm going to do something new.
Yeah, but yeah, but hopefully, I think that's really my biggest golden nugget for you is like is when you're focusing on originally and not originality and novelty. Even if you're not subjectively correct, you don't make you don't
Yeah,
you don't have the most 17-year-old girls screaming your name in the arena. You don't have the most money in the bank. But objectively, in the history books, where it really matters, in the history books and future PBS programs, rest in peace, PBS programs,
yeah.
you will always be for the rest of eternity. You know Dan Voth. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Dan Voth implemented Carl Sagan's speech into a highly
Hey man,
technical.
I like that. I'm not going to complain about that whatsoever. Sounds good to me.
So now for something, I guess, a little spicy, because I've sort of noticed a dichotomy between the two is a lot of guitar players in particular, especially guitar players I've talked to, like Ben Levin, very talented guitar player from Berkeley. A lot of ambient guitar players do emphasize on less being more. Um, but it's funny, and it's almost as a consequence of being a CandyRat guitar player is a huge emphasis on technicality and percussive techniques. Very very maximalistic stuff. Is there? Do you sort of see that? I know you don't see it as a sport, but do you see it at least something to balance, like something the structure and percussiveness of a song, but you're also going more or less a new age route where you're trying to evoke some vastness about it, um, while also making it highly technical. Is there any balance? Any?
No, not really. I mean, it's just me. Each person's them. Um, I am I. I have my own history of everything that I've consumed, and this is the output that I have from all of my influences, and this is the music that comes out. Um, each individual that's a guitarist has their own life story and all the stuff that they've experienced and their different way of playing. From that end of it, everyone's original and everyone has a different way of emphasizing and showing their creativity on this incredible instrument. Um, so yeah, I mean all these different flavors, man. It's awesome.
Mhm.
So
And you don't see
yeah.
it, and you don't see that as any. You don't see it as a dichotomy or like a war between those two, between so many ambient musicians keeping it as simple as possible, almost to where you
They
know
want that's what they want to do, right? I mean, that sounds great. I'm all for it. Or if you want to try to, and you start like headbanging and using your feet to start kicking the guitar and doing 10 things at the same time, I'm all for that too. It's great. Do it. Go
so
for it.
so even with your very scientific, very very empirical approach to art and approach to composing music, you didn't really see it as something like you were still in it like intuitively for the love of the game. You weren't in it to like it was not this more or less egoic way of it wasn't like, oh, these people, so many people are focused on minimalism, let's do the opposite of that. It wasn't even with your empirical way of composing, it wasn't like that for you.
Not really. I mean, some of my major influences on the fingerstyle front was, first Andy McKee with his video drifting, where that was one of the first major videos on YouTube, and that really got me into the whole thing and realizing you can really have all these different voices going on in the guitar at the same time, and the percussion he was doing was kick ass, and his shaved head and just the whole vibe that guy gave was just sick to me. I was like, dude, this guy's a dude, man. This guy's kick ass. So, and he really also cared about melody big time. But I don't think I play like Andy McKee. First off, he doesn't really even have fingernails. I like getting my acrylics done. I don't have mine now because I'm doing the tapping stuff, but he has a very smooth way of playing. Um, I don't think anyone else sounds like Andy McKee. All right. I really liked this guitarist, Craig DeAndrea, who had some albums out in CandyRat years ago. And his style was a little more simple, some really interesting ways that he tuned the guitar, but Craig DeAndrea really wrote some beautiful, beautiful fingerstyle songs with his melodies on the forefront, surrounded by some string slapping and basic percussion, but really just emphasizing melody above all else. And I really took to that. And then Anton with his very progressive way of thinking, that guy's mathematical mind. His melodies are more complex. He's combining all these different style points. Where listening to any song from him, every time I hear it, I'm mesmerized by what he's got going on. It doesn't get boring to me. Uh, Intellectually, Anton just blows me away with what he's got with his music. And so those were probably my three main um, elements, my three main guys that I really liked when I was developing my own style. And I wanted to develop my own style. And again, that goes back to my roots with metal and with cinematic new age music, you know.
What was
Um,
the
and
sorry.
all three of those guys, they weren't combining it with other things. I really still care about, like, okay, when you're playing live, you can play it live by just yourself, but for an album, I want it to sound big. I want it to have other elements in it, and no one else is really doing that. So,
What was the just for clarity, what is Anton's last name?
Dufour, you probably pronounce it two or three different ways.
Okay. And then
DU, yeah, DUFOUR.
what was the other one from Candy Rat? Not Andy McKee, the other guy.
Craig DeAndrea.
Cool. Yeah, it's funny that you say yeah, it's funny. It's cool that you say Andy McKee having a strong melody because as I've gotten older,
Yeah,
it's like drifting because I was in the same boat that probably millions of other people were having my first exposure to Candy Rat being drifting in particular. And as I've gotten older, I've actually appreciated the melody and the theory more than his performance. I mean, it's a badass melody. I don't care. I'll say it how I want it.
yeah.
Da 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 da. I mean, it goes on and on. It's amazing melody. So, mhm.
Just the whole way of playing it. I mean, I wonder what percentage of guitarists know of that song today. It's like if they're going into School of Rock or they're taking music lessons wherever, that song, Craig DeAndrea's songs, Anton stuff is what these guys should be learning. It's new. It's so much fun as compared to them. No offense to Hendrix or these guys that wrote music 30 years ago. I've heard it. Learn something new. This stuff, and it's so much more enjoyable to play. I don't know. That's me. And so I'm still like, this fingerstyle genre has so much to offer, and I'm glad to add my own voice to it.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
the previous guitarist I talked to, Noel Actualty from France, he told me his biggest motivation as to why guitar is the best instrument is the guitar in actuality has no it has is that it's always been a new instrument. It has no history to it because in classical, on paper, modern day is anything is the year 1500 and afterwards. And there were many instruments that are still used today that were used pre-modern. You have violin, but the guitar, even classical guitar, um, Ricardo de la Alhambra, that was all after recording equipment was invented. And he went on about that a lot, that the guitar, the only real classical canonized guitar is the lute. So the guitar is always a new instrument, and that was a really insightful
It's interesting. Yeah.
observation that he told me. Is that and it kind of softens that viewpoint of comparing Andy McKee to Jimi Hendrix. And that's another great thing about the guitar is throughout the decades, every guitar player is getting so much more and more better. Younger guitar players are getting so good. If a 17-year-old that watched Andy McKee videos every day, you know, if this kid travels back in time to the same year as Hendrix, be blown out of the water. It is pretty
Yeah.
it is pretty incredible how obvious the progression of the guitar as an instrument is. And I even other instruments, especially the piano, it's become pretty homogenous. But with how multidimensional the guitar is, it's never staying stagnant. It's always going in different directions.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Absolutely. Uh, and music in general is a different story. I don't want to go into AI songs on Spotify. I really couldn't care less about it. If you don't like it, don't listen to it. It's simple as that. Um, I enjoy the creativity. I enjoy being a human being and trying to uh, create something organically. That's
This
what I like to do with my time here. Simple as that, man.
because people have wanted me to ask you this. I was kind of hesitant because I like to keep it on the artist and the person and not take it towards the fads du jour, the trendiest thing of the day. But I mean, but since you brought it up first, how do you feel about AI in music? Does it bother you? Do you see it
In
as a
music,
yes?
I don't. I'm not impressed. I'm like, okay, great, yay. I don't find it for me to have too much application. I've listened to some songs created with it. Um, I mean, I don't. I hope that's not what the data centers are going up for. Okay, I hope that's not what 400+ billion is being spent on for this crap,
Mhm.
right? Um, I mean, heck, I was in my Tesla yesterday and I was talking to Grok about. Well, I just wanted to say awesome man in reverse to me. Okay. Okay. So okay, I want to start learning English backwards. All right, and form a new language. You want to talk about that, John? Oh, I guess we could, but it's like, do you really give a shit? I mean, it's fun, but if we're going to be spending all this money on this, I want to see cancer breakthroughs. I want to see stuff that's going to benefit mankind.
Yes.
Okay. Right. The quality of life, our health, our education, make things more efficient. All right. Efficiency is a driver of technology and a lot of things, right? And that's where money is being spent. So it's AI is going to really drive up the efficiency for everything. And whether it gets rid of jobs or not, I think it will. And I don't think that's a bad thing as long as we have a model, an economic model to handle some people that don't have to work anymore. It's simple as that.
Mhm.
And again, you're talking to somebody who grew up watching Star Trek. So I can see it working. As far as what we do with our time, well, I'm semi-retired. My day is pretty busy as is, so not gonna hear me complain too much. Play more music. So as far as AI going after our arts, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to replace it. I don't think people are going to dig it. I
It's,
think it's just a novelty that will fade.
it's gonna be
It, yeah,
what it is, a trend of the day. So
yeah.
that's du
I
jour.
don't think yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think people are going to go out to see an AI show, um, an AI concert. I don't see that working out. No, no. Even if it does, if it's not going to stop me from doing what I do, and that is creating music. That's it. And if no one else cares about that, again, it's not going to change me. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I think it's a fad. I think it's an easier thing for it to emulate, but show me some real significant stuff that it can do.
Yeah.
So I've been using ChatGPT since it came out. I introduced it to my son who's graduating high school like a week after it came out to help with his English papers, and it's awesome. It's great, but I've already gotten so used to it, and to me, it's not that big of a deal.
Mhm.
It's okay. So yeah, leave the arts alone, man. Just go do something else with the energy it's using. Just leave that alone. There's nothing there for you. I don't
Yeah.
see any benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What do
even
you think?
what? Sorry.
What do you think?
There's a couple, quite a lot. I think about it. Well, I was pretty bothered by the possibility of it taking over the arts, and just bothered in general. I know it's an egotistical viewpoint, but it would bother me quite a lot. Yeah, and I totally am open to the possibility this stems from insecurity, childhood trauma and stuff, but I would be very bothered by AI eliminating any factors of, okay, nobody's done this yet. There's room for me to do it. There's room for me to go out and accomplish something, go out and do something important for the world, for humanity. I was bothered by that for a long time. The biggest thing I've had to cope with it was actually something from Martin Luther, and I agree with it quite a lot. Which is something Martin Luther said, which is um, even if I knew that tomorrow the world will end, I will still plant my apple tree. And I kind of take that a step further, which is even if, let's say AI can do stuff that's reminiscent of Bach or reminiscent of Xenakis, or it could do something groundbreaking. If I stick to my guns every day and I go out and try to make the most meaningful music I can, go do some groundbreaking forms of poetry, um, because as you know, I try to think like a web, like a net. Stephen Fry, I remember said, "You are who you are when nobody's around." So even if have zero audience and all of the people are rushing to AI, even if I stick to my guns and do what I love doing, with no audience, you know, I try to think past my lifetime too. If people look back on my life, they will think, this person really was a musician. This person really was a poet. This person really dedicated to their craft. That's because that's kind of the gift of it. That's the best possibility of having no audience or doing stuff when nobody's watching is
What's the alternative? What as compared to what? I mean, it's like, of course you have to think that way. Where you're gonna just like, fuck it, just nothing, just no. Keep on doing what you're doing, man.
yeah,
You know, to me again, it's a lot of musicians might not be this way, but to me, it's like a form of masturbation first and foremost. I need to impress myself. Okay, it needs to be good. All right, especially if you're doing solo stuff, right? It it's a mental exercise. I could not care less about what anyone else is doing when I'm composing a song. I don't care if AI is combining all these elements and this and that. It's fantastic. That has no basis upon me trying to teach my fingers how to play something, to memorize it to 99 percentile when I play it. I love the challenge of it. You know, I I love it. And to me, like, part of being human is being challenged and being useful. Those two things are essential to being a happy person. I think are constantly challenging yourself and constantly being useful to your fellow man. And never lose sight of those two things, and you'll live a happy and fulfilled life.
Yeah, I think pretty much exactly the same way. Yeah, and I got that largely from, consider the source. I know I got it from Steve Jobs, who I know wasn't a great person. I hear was a shitty person to work for, but I think still in the bottom of my heart he was a great philosopher, and he kind of kickstarted my conviction of doing something original and doing something nobody else has done before, and
Yeah, man.
contributing to your species more than anything.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I guess now on our last topic about the future of the guitar. So,
Before we go on to that, could I request a piss break really quick?
yeah, please, yeah, yep,
Okay.
that happened
I'll be
last.
right back.
Yeah, like
Thanks, John.
I'll do the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do this.
Probably talk about that one for some time.
Yeah.
Um, but in its essence, the last project that was completed about 2 years ago is, in some ways, it's the soundtrack universe type of vibe, but taken up to the most epic cinematic level that I can. But instead of it being with the soundtrack for that series of songs, one long piece, this one is more individualized song by song. Um, with that project, I still approached it the same way with the recording, where I first went in and recorded all the guitar parts. Um, One of the most interesting aspects with that recording was that I sampled every note on the guitar. So I plucked every note so I could have it as a sample. And I also did, gosh, man, I'd say like over 3 octaves of harmonics on the guitar. So I just have a sample library of these sounds that I could have in there. And then I placed the harmonics in such a way to create different panning variations going on in the songs. If you put headphones on and you listen to pretty much any of the pieces on Harmonic Dreams, there's so much panning going on with the harmonics in these songs. It's like it really it's a new type of surround sound without it being in total surround sound. And don't have me go there because I actually want to do a full surround sound album, but that's a different conversation. So there is a lot of panning used in it, by sampling the guitar for different parts, which created a whole new. If you listen to it, you might be able to pick out the areas that are programmed instead of me performing it live. Um, so it's a mixture of the samples and me playing live. And then on the other fronts, I used the same lady to perform the string quartets for me that I wrote out. Beautiful, just beautiful work on there. And then I was very fortunate to be able to hire who I consider to be, she has maybe the most beautiful voice I've ever heard.
What's her name?
Um, her name is, totally fotch her name up here. Maretta Solvent. I'm probably saying it totally wrong. She's Norwegian. Um, she plays with Thomas Bergensen, who is an epic cinematic composer. If you don't know who that is, John, check out Thomas Bergensen. So she sings on a lot of his songs. And so she added choir work into a lot of my pieces that I wrote out for her. So that added another layer to everything. And then I also did a lot of orchestral percussion in there that you might hear like in movie soundtracks to really. So a lot of marching type of things going on. And some of the songs do still have a very spacey vibe to them. Um, One of the songs I was able to work with Anoop Sastry, who does djent metal. So he plays drums on this song. So a wide range of situations occurring on a song by song basis. So it turned out really well, man. It was a lot of fun too.
It's awesome. And
Yep.
and then last guitar question is do you if this is even a priority because it's almost subjective, do you worry or do you even keep in mind about the potential for the integrity of the guitar being disturbed with how rapidly and how quickly technology is is progressing, or if that's even a concern of yours about not caring whether maybe the guitar could turn into something better. So
Yeah, it might. I don't know. I mean, it's not going to affect me today or next year to what I am setting out to do. Um, if it ends up, not that I care too much about the monetization of this, but if Spotify and other platforms are going to start going towards more and more of what people listen to, not even being something that's created by a human being, that's a dystopian future that sounds like shit. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the guitar, I mean, unless you run out of thesis statements that can be said on it, I don't think we're there yet.
uh,
I think it might be getting harder.
yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm going to a 10-tet system after I get done with this new project I'm on. Right. So I'm interested in exploring different things. And by the way, you can't do that on the piano per se, unless you're going to take out some of the keys. All right. But on the guitar, you can rearrange the frets. So only have 10 frets per octave. So I think it's more or less like a unique thing that you can do on the guitar to, again, reinvent it up to a certain point. I think there's still more thesis statements to be done, John. Yeah.
And on a very cliche note, because you've been actually very insightful so far, very, unsurprisingly very intellectual about your approach to music. Um, do you have any advice for youth? And I'm not talking about the career aspect of it. That's a bit too complicated. About composing. Do you have any advice for
Sure. Have fun. Have fun doing it. You know, it's just make, if it's not enjoyable, then what the hell are you doing? If you're not digging it, if it's not something you're doing for fun to start off, then what the hell are you doing it for? It should be something that should definitely start off as a hobby. All right. And that means not throwing your kids into forced piano lessons that they're miserable doing. That isn't like, hey, I got a great idea of how to start a hobby out for my kid. Force them to do something. No, no, I don't think that works. So do stuff you enjoy, man, and take it from there. And it will just, again, just like the Fibonacci sequence, it will build up if it's meant to be.
And do bother taking into account what their parents think of it or what their peers think of it? Is that
Yeah, I mean, for each family, for each person, it's different. Look, I think everyone should have a hobby that they're being creative with. Frankly, even if that's like playing video games, up to a point. I watched my older son play was it Black Wukong, and he's he's great. He's like mastered the game where he can just almost like not get hit at all and just kill. And again, it's like muscle memory he's got with his fingers of memorizing. We're just learning really well how to do this. That's cool. That's cool. Now he's also playing volleyball, right? I kind of wish he was playing music, but I'm not going to force it down his throat, man. You know, no one did that to me.
yeah?
Um, and if you do enjoy it, if you are having fun with it, I do think, believe maybe that there isn't to come a point where you're going to want to take lessons. You're going to want to get your basic music theory in there. I took music theory in college and so forth, vocal training and stuff like that up to a point. It definitely helps. At some level, you need to know what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? But I'm not one of those guys that sits down and, all right, I'm going to try doing something in this mode, uh, or I got to do something with this chord progression, and it's going to change to this inversion here. I don't speak that way. I don't think that way per se. It's more like what I emotionally feel should come. I hear it in my head, so I'm more of a I enjoy just hearing it internally instead of reading it. So even though I am pretty empirical in that, when it comes to music, I like to use feeling and my emotions to see where it should go.
Yeah.
I think that's important. So yeah,
Awesome.
don't force it down anyone's throat, man. They should enjoy the process.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Enjoy the process. All
for
right.
sure.
That
Yeah.
pretty much is a wrap. We're talking about, your very impressive discography and career. And I guess the last question I have, on the note of, being 10-year anniversary of Trancendance and soundtrack, and with the very impressive technical direction going in, what's your preferred way that you want the audience to support your work?
Well, doing this podcast has been awesome, man. I appreciate that. And I just listen to it. And if you got headphones, listen to it with headphones, man, because headphones are the way to go. Or good speakers. Don't listen to music with your iPhone. All right, put that away. It was better back in the '80s when people had a boom box and they were going around with that. at least it had two friggin' speakers out of it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So listen to it with good speakers or good pair of headphones.
Awesome.
And take the time to listen to an album from start to finish, right? Have a little more patience with it. There's a story. It'll be really rewarding to do that. If not with my work, then with anyone that puts the time in to create an album.
All right. Awesome. So yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful and insightful talking about the topic that I named for this podcast, cosmicism and the acoustic guitar. So, and it has been wonderful having Daniel Voth on my podcast discussing it. And so, yeah, thank you so much for your time and your insight.
Likewise, John. It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Let's see.
Your audience to hear my insights on what we've talked about.
Thank you. Yep. And last thing before it's only about two or three questions left. And yeah, the other thing why I'm starting to doubt whether maybe you would like um so my favorite city in Florida is St. Petersburg, St. Pete. It's very, there's a lot of young people there. It's very bougie. It's not like most of Florida, which is just retirement people, coming into shit on our state, people that have never grown up here. Um, I'm not sure just you would like Orlando because you seem like very much like someone who loves the night sky, and you said you knew your constellations, and I I think you would go crazy if how bad our night sky is here.
I hear you. I also love beach volleyball. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I love the beach and I love volleyball nets and volleyballs. And I love trying to smack it in someone's face, John. That's one of my pastimes.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. But thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Before we continue, yeah, you've been awesome. You've been amazing. Yeah. It's just kind of
Thank
fun.
you again. You're awesome, man. Yeah, you're really intellectually, up there. It's awesome.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I
A
try
lot of
my best.
different.
I try my best. I just call it being a workaholic. I don't do much outside of what I do. I don't really have real hobbies though. It's because I'm working a lot during the day, getting this off the ground at night. So it's tough, but I try to think very long term. I think, the whole thing of creativity is it's high risk, high reward. There's not a big chance you will succeed, but if you do, it's a winner takes all. So
A lot of people don't think long term, whatever that might. I mean, I'm talking like I've always been somebody since I was young. I'm like, okay, I'm 10 years old. What do I want to be when I'm 20?
mhm.
How am I going to get there? Right. I mean, everything when you break it down is simple, step by step by step by step. So, I try to instill that with my kids to some degree of success. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I think it's great to think short, midterm, and long term with everything you want to do in your life.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it Yeah, at least that's been a core way of, my self-evaluation.
Yeah, and it comes from, and I think it comes both ways. I will say I came from a very, very dysfunctional childhood, and I started my life over all over again when I was 20 years old. No money. Had to My parents had to help me out to survive, and but that it really, I thought it was a joke and a cliche, but that adversity, especially scarcity, it really can be the best thing that can happen to you, because it's sometimes it is the only way to instill you, okay, okay, like this life is, in all likelihood, this is the only life we have. I gotta do whatever I can to make the most of this. So
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up, I had, really bad allergies and asthma
mhm.
growing up, from, gosh, probably, like, when I was 6 to 13, I probably spent, like, a month each year in the hospital with asthma attacks or double pneumonia or bronchitis, something. Um, I've broken my wrist, my arm, ACL reconstruction. I was in a coma for 2 weeks playing kick the can, and I guess I ran out to kick the can and ran into the guy that was it and cracked my skull open on the street. So those types of situations, I think, have helped me just, you know, now's the time, now's the place, let's go.
Yeah,
You know,
I wasn't gonna
um,
get sorry. I wasn't gonna get
yeah,
too specific. I wasn't gonna get too specific, but now that you have, I'll do it. Yeah. So I grew up. My brain was very, very not right. So I am on the autism spectrum. So socially, very, very slow to develop. Didn't really understand social subtlety till I was about 19 or 20, and ADHD. So it was very, so this might completely shock you, but I didn't do very well in school at all. It was very hard for me to maintain 7 topics at a day. It was very hard, especially in math, memorizing 15 steps, and if you miscalculate one of them, the whole thing is ruined. It's that absolute insane precision that was very, very hard for me to overcome. But yeah, now, but that's, I realize that that's all a gift, because instilled me, this is all I have. I'm doing as much as I can. Probably my greatest accomplishment still is being a teetotaler. Nothing against people that do drink, but I don't drink ever. So that's
good.
probably, I credit that personally to most of my accomplishments. Having alcoholism run in the family, so
It
having
gets
that,
old quick, man. Gets old really quick. Yeah.
yeah, having that metacognition is really, really important to me. So that, and I appreciate your comments about, being well read and stuff. So I was gonna go into more detail, but it's just egotistical. It's just me, like, making up for all the adversity when I was a kid. So I'm not sure if yours has been the same way, but so.
Oh, in some degrees. Yeah, I'm very antisocial in large gatherings.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think I'm necessarily shy. Um, but up to a point, it's kind of like, there's so much different stimuli coming at me. I like to just try to focus on one thing. I don't want to have small talk conversations with a group of people always interrupting me midstream and blah 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 blah. It just gets old.
Yeah.
So, you put me in a large group of people, I'd probably be the quietest person in the room.
Mhm.
And I've learned as I've gotten older to be comfortable with me.
Yes.
I'm me. You're you.
Yeah.
Each of us has our flaws and our strengths, and just, acknowledge that and be proud of both, man. Shit.
And that's another thing I've learned too, is like, I guess, for lack of a better word, reflection therapy is, if you're not comfortable in your own skin and you're not forgiving toward yourself, how in the world towards others, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't blame especially young teenagers like me who were insecure. It is so paramount to not be insecure, because if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else is going to for you. So it's like, even though I have nothing but sympathy and compassion towards, insecure teenagers who might be, who I empathize with a lot, who might be a victim of bullying, who might be a victim of divorced parents, but you know, that it's important to not have that, for the rest of your life. So, but that's just me preaching, but so.
I like being interesting. I like being odd. I like being different.
Mhm.
It's like one of the best things someone can say to me is, dude, that's weird. What's wrong with you? You know, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
That means I'm doing something right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And before we continue with the last few questions, I actually really liked this casual conversations. I'll take out the rest. Are you cool if I include
Oh yeah, it's
this
fine.
casual conversation, like about our struggles and stuff?
I
Cool.
think it's important to understand that. I mean, you said it, like adversity makes you appreciate the here and now, to
Yeah.
make the most out of your time,
Yeah.
which fed into long-term thinking.